is a press conference on the current impasse in the African Church, holding today on the 24th of June 2025. Distinguished, devout, and concerned members of the African Church, esteemed members of the public, and honored members of the press, I greet you with the love of Christ and pray for God's unending grace to multiply in our lives. It is disheartening to witness the current impasse in our church, the African Church, a foremost indigenous church in Nigeria. Despite our efforts, the issue persists, and it is demoralizing to see our brethren resort to spreading falsehoods through the media. Initially, we chose to ignore their actions in order to preserve the image of our church. However, we realize that our parishioners and the public need to be protected from their misinformation and be informed of the truth. The fact remains that this rebellious group within the church has consistently demonstrated an unholy attitude, refusing to change. Those familiar with our church's history will recognize that these individuals have caused trouble for previous primates, including primates Solomon Olayiwola Babawale Oyawoye, Abraham Onodotun Olumuyiwa Ononuga, and Emmanuel Josiah Udofia, the immediate past primate of the church. These power brokers believe that the primate should take instructions from them, dictating the direction of the church. Their recent press release attributed the current crisis to the 2018 conference election. Yet, they omitted that their own members in 2018 told us what happened then was right, but suddenly woke up to sing a new tune after 6 years. Our observation is that this group consistently prioritizes their own interests, seeking to impose their will on the church. At our 2023 executive meeting in Ibeju-Lekki, Lagos, they voluntarily submitted to a vote on the screened list, that is, the candidates for election, only to be defeated. This realization that they were no longer popular in the church marked the beginning of their efforts to disrupt the peace and frustrate election efforts. We therefore urge the public to understand that these brethren are not motivated by concerns for church planting, doctrine, or evangelism. Their sole focus is on securing offices, titles, and authority within the church, thereby neglecting spiritual programs and often engaging in unbecoming behavior. On Sundays, they arrive late to church services and subsequently convene at alcohol joints, indulging until evening. They even brag that major decisions of the church, such as appointment of persons into high offices, of both the clergy and laity are discussed and determined at these alcohol joints. They declined to attend the primate's legitimately convened meeting on May 1st, 2025, instead opting for an illegal gathering. This led to the establishment of parallel administrative organs, wooing ministers and laities to their cause. At their meeting, they appointed the Most Reverend Augustine Afolabi Odufuwa as acting primate, tasking him with performing all constitutional rights of the primate. Many were perplexed, wondering if the substantive primate had resigned or had traveled out or absent. The Most Reverend A. Odufuwa, having entered the episcopal rank before age 40, is well aware of the implications of his actions. On his consecration day, he took an oath of allegiance to the office of the primate, which he has now broken. Interestingly, Odufuwa is slated to retire in August this year and has already received over 90% of his retirement benefits from his province, that is Ibadan province, since April this year. He has been moving from one diocese to another for his retirement valedictory. Yet, the group he is involved with claims his retirement has been extended indefinitely against the provision of our extant constitution. As an archbishop, Odufuwa has inaugurated new dioceses, consecrated new bishops, and invested new archbishops, contradicting the constitution he swore to uphold. His actions demonstrate a willingness to be swayed by personal gains. The Church, under my leadership as the primate, has not barred any one of them from attending meetings. However, they have chosen to establish a parallel administration. At the 2024 Church Conference in Lagos, the conference resolved that they withdraw all legal suits that are related to elections, but they have disregarded this resolution. The recent emergency conference in Calabar condemned their activities and declared them null and void. It is noteworthy that the majority of the dioceses nationwide have pledged their allegiance to the primate, His Eminence Julius OSAYANDE OLAYINKA ABBE. We believe their apprehension stems from the overwhelming responses of our dioceses. In their desperation, they have attempted to alter the church's bank accounts or open new ones, seeking to access and divert church funds. We established a reconciliation committee on May 1st, 2025, and we urge them to approach this committee presenting their grievances for the sake of peace and unity within the body of Christ. Rather than taking to the path of peace, they have resolved to blackmail, mudslinging, harassment, threats to life and property, insightful and provocative statements, rebellious acts, and the likes. At this juncture, let the loyal sons and daughters of the African Church at home and in the diaspora take heed and note that the Most Reverend Augustine Afolabi Odufuwa is not the acting primate but an impostor who chose to impersonate the office of the primate because of greed and inordinate ambition. Elder Pius Adedayo Shubambo and Chief Peter Okiti are not the acting lay president and acting deputy lay president of the African Church, respectively, but irresponsible layabouts who have their eyes in the funds of the church. Brother Bayo Ogundemu is not the national secretary of a church and therefore lacks any moral legitimacy to write any letter in the name of the African Church. The purported suspension letter written by this group is laughable, illegitimate, and should be totally ignored. The incorporated trustees, in line with the Constitution, are expired and without constitutional authority. I, His Eminence Julius OSAYANDE OLAYINKA ABBE, by the grace of God, elected as the 12th primate of the African Church, remain the indisputable spiritual and overall head of the church, that is the African Church. The National Conference, that is the highest ruling organ, held in Calabar on the 19th of June 2025, took some salient decisions which are binding on all units of the church. The decisions include, but not limited to, the following: approved the election of the following officers to run the affairs of the church for the next 6 years, namely Mrs. Victoria O. Omotunde, General Secretary; Barrister Ezekiel A. Okorode, Chancellor; Barrister Mrs. Remi Shoeton, Vice Chancellor; Elder Idongesit Epanya Antia, General Treasurer; Brother Adeni Showumi, Financial Secretary; Brother Kayode Ogunbiyi, Auditor; Brother Olumide Omolade, Auditor; Mrs. Moji Rojaye Taiwo, Assistant General Secretary, laity. The following were also appointed as pro tem officers of the church: Yeye Dr. Anna Afolabi, pro tem lay president; Brother Otons Idoniboye Obu, pro tem deputy lay president; Mrs. Omolara Erogogo, pro tem education secretary; Comrade Simon Kaor, pro tem conference secretary; Venerable Emmanuel Adebayo Abogori, pro tem assistant conference secretary; Venerable Teddy Olawande Afeni, pro tem assistant general secretary, clergy; Venerable Kingsley Duff, pro tem statistician. Conference also approved the appointment of the following honorary officers: Engineer Chief Babatunde Adewale Odufuwa, Grand Patron; Engineer Tonye Oswald David West, Grand Patron; Elder Samson S. Adegboye, Patron; Architect Jide Sawyer, Patron; Chief James O. Omayone, Patron. The following were dismissed from the services of the church for their insubordination, rebellious propaganda, and other devious acts against the constitution of the church. 1. Most Reverend Augustine Afolabi Odufua, dismissed. Most Reverend Solomon Babatunde Ojumu, dismissed. Most Reverend Samuel Olaiton Ajayi, dismissed. Most Reverend Joseph Olalekon Akinsoya, dismissed. Most Reverend Peter Oluwakemi Ogunmuyiwa, dismissed. Most Reverend Joseph Babatunde Ayoko, dismissed. Most Reverend Zechariah Amu Daoud, dismissed. Right Reverend Adekunle Ilesomi Daodu, dismissed. Right Reverend Ezekiah Adeleke Adetoro, dismissed. The Right Reverend Michael Olufemi Adeyemi, dismissed. Right Reverend Gabriel Taiwo Adebanjo, dismissed. Right Reverend David Oyekunle Akinremi, dismissed. Right Reverend Otonyemieba Dabibi, dismissed. The Right Reverend Abraham T. Chia, dismissed. And Reverend Richard Peters, dismissed. The following were excommunicated for sacrilege, rebellion, and unconstitutional breaches, and can no longer partake in Holy Communion. They are Elder Pius Adedayo Shobambo, Brother Bayo Ogundimu, Chief Peter Okiti, Barrister Thompson Owonowo, Barrister Femi Fafowora, and all others elected or appointed in their illegal and unconstitutional meeting. The conference at Calabar also nullified and quashed all archdeaconries, dioceses, and provinces created in their unconstitutional and illegal meeting just to cause chaos and confusion in the church. These creations remain null, void, and of no effect. Finally, let all of us be calm, prayerful, and watchful, always on our guard, to prevent these impostors and troublemakers and their sponsors, whose main agenda is to steal from the coffers of the church and ultimately destroy the church. Jesus said in Matthew 16, verse 18, "Upon this rock I will build my church, and the gate of hell shall not prevail against it." The Church of God is marching on. It stands firmly, unshaken, undaunted, and unmoved under the spiritual and administrative leadership of his anointed servant, His Eminence JULIUS OSAYANDE OLAYINKA ABBE, the primate of the African Church. Any other primate under any guise is fake, illegal, and unconstitutional. Heaven's light, our guide. Thank you, and stay blessed.